Hello everybody and welcome to this amazing video going over Tyde's tier list for Season 3 Duel 1v1s. There will be a different one for Joust 3v3s, but this is specifically on Tyde's opinion for Duel 1v1s. It's very important to understand that this is the very beginning of the season, so this is more of just my thoughts of what I've come across, how I feel, and what I think will happen. But this list will change severely throughout the entire season as nerfs, buffs, changes, and all sorts of new gods are added, so therefore this is just kind of a way to get us started and familiar with what we should expect going into Duel 1v1. There's tons to go over, so without any more hesitation, let's just jump right into what my list is. So quickly, let's cover the new god Raijin. He's a great burst mage, does very well, but I feel he's going to be heavily nerfed coming into the season for how good he is performing right now, so I believe he'll end up in an A+ location. But if we were to place him now for what he's doing, he's well worthy of an S+. But that's really about all my thoughts on Raijin. I haven't even gotten my hands on him as much as I want to because I've been focusing too much on the ranked scene that I've not been able to play him other than the one video and mastery that I got on him. So jumping right into SS tier, this is the tier that I feel is the most broken gods of the game that just have the best advantage and should always win in the current meta. And that only god is Chronos. He is one of the best dual gods as he's had the kit to kind of get out of everything, also perfect control, very high damage, stupid objective pressure, and just serves as any role he ever wanted to be. He's a tank, support, carry. He is a team on his own. Typically in Joust and Conquest, he can be defeated by being focused, because being bursted down will kill him before he can even get out with his ultimate. However, in a 1v1, that is not always the case, and it becomes very difficult for you to actually get him bursted down. Some people may not share this opinion, but I feel that Chronos is the best and most powerful dual god and recommend a ban no matter what. Moving on to S+ tier, these are gods I feel are ban worthy and you should see these bans very often. Artemis is a new kind of high tier god that has come out of the depths. Artemis wasn't always that great, being her Tusky could always be countered by beads or some form of CC, but if your god lacks any amount of CC immunity through an ult or an ability such as Shangha's 2 or Raven's 2, Artemis just dominates. She's very difficult to handle with the golden bow. Very high attack speed, good damage, objective pressure, can take Demon Bull no problem. She is overall a pain in the ass, and with Tusky being up more than you can have purification beads, it becomes a heavy control problem when you have to deal with that stun. Cupid, on the other hand, is a little different. Cupid is the god that I'm using mainly to get to Masters. I'm already Diamond 2, ready for my promo. By the time my next tier list comes out, I should be in Grandmasters, but Cupid is carrying me the whole way. He has amazing power for building no power and great with attack speed. He's able to just kind of sit back and lane at the start and play safe and snowball into something fierce. He has amazing control, very high AoE damage, and just can pop the damage out of nowhere. He can also use his ult defensively to help get him out of trouble with a great dash that increases his attack speed. Cupid overall is a shockingly good god, and that is who I am currently using. I haven't yet seen a ban other than a specific ban against me. When they knew it was me, they banned Cupid, but we then went into many mirror matches of OP gods such as Freya, Chronos, Habois, but so far Cupid has been that god there for me, so I'll also place him in the S+. Freya, self-explanatory, very high single target damage, non-stop, brutal, great pressure. The only reason she's not an SS is because making a mistake on her can cost her the game. There are a couple of counters to her as well, unlike Chronos, who I feel has no counter. But Freya is great at a late game, and she just snowballs into something amazing. Habois has seen some serious buffs in Season 2, and he's always been a very powerful god, but Habois is now a very menacing threat that he is now on my perma ban list. Just being able to two-shot gods that have no defense, even one-shot them with his ult, or even when you do build a bulwarks, it's not enough. There's nothing that is enough to get Habois off you without him just completely annihilating you. Next on my list is Hou Yi. Hou Yi at the end of Season 2 was worthy of SS tier, but going into Season 3 he seems to have gotten a little bit of nerfs since Frostbound and Soul Eater are not as strong as they were, and he can no longer get the easy triple ricochets, but his Golden Mark Crow thing crap is just stupid. The fact he can get through 25% of your protections, the fact that he gets a stun, slow, pop-up, all that jazz on you based on one ability, and deals more damage with the less health you have, it just hurts, and he's too powerful. So with that being said, I feel that Chronos is a great pick against him, but being that I feel he is beatable, I'm going to place him at S+, but keep him on as a permaban. Moving on to Sol, she's just more of an annoying god than anything. Another beatable god, but with what seems to be an endless pool of mana, healing, and just great range and damage. Sol's just annoying. Beatable if you can land your abilities on her when she's going through her to separate and just dashes around really fast. You can secure a kill here and there, but you do have to be careful of her extremely high damage, high pressure. She is very ban-worthy, or expect to play her in a mirror match if you let her through. Moving through the S tier, it's just gods that I feel that aren't ban-worthy or are close to ban-worthy, but there are other bans that I prefer, and they are not that powerful. Just typically understand that I can't go over every god in this list, so I'm going to skip over a couple, but know that a lot of hunters make it higher in this list simply because they're a hunter. This is the hunter meta. Hunter then mage. Mage for joust and conquest most likely, but hunters reign supreme in duel. So Anher's on this list as S because his jump's a little slow. He is a hunter. Apollo is also another hunter with a great passive. He also has amazing control. He's just not S+ because he does fall short compared to the hunters in S+. Bakasura is an assassin, always great. Chin size did receive a buff, so it's important to remember, watch out for Bakasura. He isn't always ban-worthy, but make sure that when you let him through or you see him appearing more often, pick Apollo to help counter that, or pick a god that can escape Bakasura's crap. Bastet is a god I really want to talk about because I feel she received a lot of buffs. With Beat Stick now applying on abilities, she is a huge threat to hunters. She is great with cooldowns, high power, and a beat stick to just get that extra pen, anti-healing on lifesteal. She is now viable against hunters and can fight back, though it is still difficult because hunters are unfair with Frostbound and still get a good amount of lifesteal. A well-played Bastet can beat hunters. Chiron falls on this list as just because, again, he's a hunter. Kali has always been a great objective pressure god, extreme damage, and because Chin Size got a buff, she deserves to be up here. She is ban-worthy though. I don't know why I don't put her in S+, but being that I have beaten many Kalis on my way here, I don't feel that she compares to the gods in S+. Medusa's up here because of hunter, Neith is up here because she's a hunter, and Raven is ungodly strong, but not bannable, being he is again countered by hunters. Frostbound is a very strong pick, but without any penetration, Raven's damage from his abilities is so ridiculously high, he doesn't even need penetration to solo Titan. He could build defense in just Titan's Bane and a Transcendence, and that's just apparently enough to eat through anything. His cooldowns are low and his damage is relatively high. He is essentially Loki and Shang-Ah combined. Loki's aim strike always on with a heavy slow on that. He does have Shang-Ah's little dance out, which also deals damage, plus a nice little root with a heal if hitting multiple enemies. And then Ullr falls on the S tier as because he is a hunter. However, he is not S+ only because he requires a high skill to play. He comes with great reward, he is well worthy of S+, but you can't always find an Ullr player who will be able to play Ullr at that level. So he is at S for the fact that if played incorrectly, he can cost you the game, but if played wonderfully correct, you can obviously troll and stomp other gods. Moving on to the A+ gods, Amuzin Cobb's up here because he's a hunter, but he has no mobility and focuses primarily on basic attacks. Because he can no longer build super healthy and defensive, his reign in the Season 2 joust scene is gone. He does still deal quite a bit of damage, and like I said, he's still a hunter, so still better than a balanced god. Shang-Ah has been moved down to A+ due to high counters to healing, and she doesn't seem to be able to fight hunters very well. She still does get in compared to other gods, so she does get above balance. Fenrir is also one of the greater assassins that, if played correctly, can do better than most balanced gods, but he does fall short when, again, it comes to hunters. Moving on to Hades, he saw a lot of play at the end of Season 2, and he was exceptionally strong. But it seems now into this season, Hades is falling off a little bit due to the relic system and a couple of items. He's just not as strong as he was, but he's still pretty powerful. Hell, with all the anti-healing, has also dropped down from S to A+, as she just falls a little short on her heals, but still deals a ridiculous amount of damage. Loki on the A+ as well, because he is still very powerful, and people will disagree and say he belongs in S, S+, or even SS, but I think he fits an A+. If you know how to properly build against a Loki and counterplay him by listening to the sounds of his footsteps, by auto-attacking, he loses to hunters. It's a shame, but he does struggle, so I'm going to put him in A+, because he is still very powerful, and a well-played Loki can still turn the tide, but in this case, Loki, it's going to just remain a little above balance. Moving on to Mercury. Mercury has received a couple of buffs, but I don't think he's performing exceptionally well because of the word hunter. And you'll see this coming up all the time, that I'm basing this mainly on the meta, which is hunters. And Mercury falls a bit short. He can still do amazingly well if performed correctly, so he is above balance and does well. Poseidon falls on this list as I move him from S to A+, since I feel he's fallen off. He can still deal damage and his Kraken is still great, but the relic system has really screwed him over with all these new items that are also coming out. Bulwark is a little broken against mages, and Poseidon isn't the strongest mage out there. Any kind of healing really screws with this kit, and him being a hybrid god, I feel like out of all the mages, he just kind of got screwed, being he does best as a hybrid, but hybrids are now not a thing. Rom falls on the A+ line because he is a hunter, so he is above, the average, but everything he does is based on basic attacks. Unfortunately, I feel that the gods with control and maybe a little more variety to their attack other than just basics would serve, a little better. Shiva Lanka is also on here as he is a power hunter, and he does very well, but he does require, again, a lot of skill. I feel Uller is a bit more rewarding when it comes to, performing at a high skill level, but Shiva Lanka just doesn't cut it compared to the other hunters. Alright, we came to, the hardest to talk about tier list, which is A. These are gods I feel are balanced, or I haven't gotten enough time to get an impression to move them up or down. They just sit here because I feel that they are all viable, but also have several counter picks and can counter certain gods, so I'll place them all here. Agni, Apash, Amaterasu, all great gods. Anubis can do well. What's his name? God dang it. Ao Kuang, jeez. He's a great god now. He does have the potential to burst, but again, hunters come in. A couple of other assassins do slightly better than him as a mage. Aphrodite gets countered by heals. I feel she's currently the weakest healer. Bellona, bring in the hunters, and there you are again. I don't feel warriors are winning too much in this meta, as Kukulcan is Kukulcan. Compared to every other guardian, he does a lot of damage, so I feel that as Fat Loki, he still serves a good purpose. Isis is great at control, but countered by too many gods, again, hunters, and there's just a little too much counterplay against Isis, but she does perform well and is well balanced. Yanis, again, falls a bit short when it comes to hunters or anyone with heals, as he is able to deal a lot of burst damage, but if they can sustain the damage and stay in the fight, there's no real kind of thing Yanis can do about it. Osiris is a basic attack warrior, which puts him here in the balance, because basic attack gods typically do better by late game, and against hunters he can fare a little better, but I feel he's well balanced, doesn't need buffs, doesn't need nerfs, he's okay where he's at. Ra falls on the balance scale because he's just balanced. I feel he's a little weaker than some, but he does okay. With the proper build, you can get through it. Zilla is also very skill-based. She is balanced. She can deal the damage. She can secure the kills and sustain a little bit, but again, she just doesn't perform as well as the top tier gods. Tyr's very good in the right hands. Again, great warrior, skill-based, does good early game. Vamana is kind of interesting in the fact that he was stronger with the protection meta from Season 2, but he hasn't fallen off too much. I feel he's balanced and right where he needs to be. Plus with Beat Stick he can fight hunters off a little better, so all good. Vulcan is a very high skill requirement god, so I feel that his high damage, his great control, it's all well balanced. It requires someone who can put a lot of effort into Vulcan to play Vulcan. Jing Shen is still one of the more powerful guardians, as he is able to successfully fight off almost any hunter and falls a little short on mages. Healers especially do well against him unless he picks up a Divine Ruin. Zhonghui is a powerful mage in and of itself, but again, countered by many of the top tier gods, and does moderately well. You could probably get some viability out of him. Moving on to the B tier, Wheelix is not that bad, but because she is an assassin that is limited to a pop-up, and by herself she cannot pop up without putting a lot of effort into it, 1v1s are not her thing, so I feel she needs a little bit of a buff if she's going to be viable in duel, but she's not absolutely terrible and can still deal quite a bit of damage on her own. Shock also falls under this as he has a great heal, great damage, but falls off and just isn't as good as all the other gods above him. Guan Yu is also a very high skill requirement to even get something decent out of him, but falls a bit short because he is a supportive god and his kit does not fully work for duel. Kukulcan also falls under this with its high power but hard to hit abilities. It just sometimes isn't worth it if people can dodge your abilities, and some mages are just easier to play. You get the same results with like half the effort. Surkhet is powerful, but in a 1v1 she falls a bit short when she gets countered by crits and defense that she has to actually play as a normal kind of god, but she can still deal the damage, get some early game in there. Sun Wukong has always been kind of iffy on my scale. I kind of bumped him up a little bit just to give him a little bit of love, but Sun Wukong is not viable. He can't do a lot of late game things, but he does great early game, gets a good amount of power out there, but Hunter's obviously his bane. Thor, as an assassin, has a lot of stuns and great global potential in Conquest, but here in Duel, when you're a 1v1, it's a little easier to dodge his ult. It's a little harder to get in there and 1v1 somebody. Moving on to Arachne, she definitely is hard to play with no clear, has great healing, and gets countered by way too many gods. She has a great escape, but I feel that without the ability to clear the waves, a lot of other gods come on top. Hercules falls a bit short as he has great heals, but just he is a tank, and his damage does fall off at the later game. Even though he can deal quite a bit, everyone else can deal more than him. Crits definitely hurt him, anti-healings will shut him down, and that can all come very easily with the new meta of anti-healing. Humbots is a awkward assassin as he can do great early game, but his passive just isn't set for the late game. He's a conquest god more or less, and a lot of these gods are obviously balanced towards conquest, but some of their kits can be used for duel, but just Humbots falls a little short. Nox is a one-trick pony, and one-trick ponies in duel are not something you want to play. She requires the combo, and when someone is able to look at you and focus at what you're doing, it becomes very hard to land that combo, and therefore Nox's damage is not as great as others. Nuwa also lacks kind of viability based on her minion AI. It's just not very effective in duel because the minions always go in a direction you don't want them to. And there are times where Nuwas can do great, but it takes so much more effort. And Odin falls under the warriors, and his bird bomb's great early game, but he falls off late game. Even though he has that amazing ultimate that comes up almost every 36 seconds with max cooldowns, it's almost pointless if you don't have allies to help you out. Zeus also falls under the one-trick pony as he is a burst god, but good luck fighting any hunter, any of the A-tier gods or up, as they all have a better time just kind of sustaining or have multiple ways to play, where Zeus is just stuck with one set bursts. Moving on to the C tier now, the gods that are guardians that deal damage I've put here because guardians have just completely fallen off. Ares and Bacchus do great damage, and you could probably still get some kill potential out of them, but it's a bit difficult. Nemesis is now kind of useless. I feel so bad for her when I fight her that there's not much she can do. Too much control can cut her out completely. The meta for duel is to build defensive, and balance out your build, and even though Nemesis steals protections, ulting a squish and taking 50% of their life is a huge thing, but when your opponent has those protections, you don't steal that percent. It's mitigated, so unfortunately Nemesis, you're down here on the C list, along with Naja, who's a one-trick pony. Mostly with crits, he just tries to get that ult in there, but again, with that defense, completely shuts him down. Same goes for Radisker. He is limited based on his items, because his passive actually takes up an item slot. He is not capable of counter building to the level of every other god, so he ends up down here. Thanatos is an early game god and becomes a late game basic attack god, but in comparison to all the others, having a melee basic attack based god who really will struggle at the end game it's a bit rough, so he unfortunately falls down here. Wrapping it up with the D tier, these are gods I don't feel are viable for duel at all anymore, and these are pretty much all guardians: Athena, Geb, Khepri, Kumbhakarna, Sobek, Sylvanas, and Ymir. Even though, yeah, you could probably win a game or two at a lower tier, you're not going to fight another master and think you can win with this. The meta won't support it anymore. You used to be able to at least do something, and only a few guardians were left, but I've tried my Sylvanas attack speed, I've tried my power Ymir. They just can't do anything anymore, and it's a true shame, but I feel that the nerf was needed, being these gods really shouldn't be dealing all that much damage, and the nerf I'm talking about is just kind of the relic system, the items that are in place right now. Thank you, everybody. I do apologize for how long it took me to get this tier list up and out there. It takes a lot of effort to talk over every god, and normally I was going to have this very long script, and I tried to go over every god as fast as I could and just kind of give you brief descriptions on where I was going to put them. Really, thank you for all your support. The only reason I do this tier list is because I was asked to, and it is my opinion. If you do not share the opinion or think the god belongs somewhere else, please go ahead and let me know, but do know that this is my opinion and you will not be changing it. I am already in Diamond 2, and like I said, I'm working on my way to Grandmasters. I will remake a tier list when I feel that I get a better grasp of the current meta, but this is where I think it should be. Thank you, everybody, for all your support, all the stuff that you guys do for me. I can't thank you enough, so here is my thanks to you. A tier list to maybe help you get vision of how TydeTyme plays and how he views the tier list. I suggest to all of you, view multiple tier lists and craft your own. Find where you think you need your bans based on your playstyle, because I think that's where you'll get the most out of this. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, good game.